Hello and welcome to my channel, the TCP, True Crime Podcast. This is the Michigan Murder Series, Episode 1, Matthew Macon, the Monster of Mid-Michigan. When people think of their hometown and its surrounding community, they rarely think it could be home to a serial killer or a site of a murder. While Midwestern states like Michigan are often left out of the national true crime discussion, there are several grisly cases that grip the Mitten State in fear. Birth of a killer. Matthew Macon grew up in a terrible household. His father, James Macon Sr., dominated the family through physical and sexual abuse. Macon's sister was removed from the home in 1983 after enduring sexual abuse from her father. James Macon Sr. was said to use broomsticks and other objects in his despicable acts. According to City Pulse, in 1984, Macon Sr.'s wife sought a restraining order against him because of the vicious beatings she received from her husband. That same year, Macon Sr. was arrested after physically assaulting his 17-year-old pregnant girlfriend because she refused to work as a prostitute. The charges would be dismissed after she recanted her accusations. Young Macon often witnessed this and was said to be abused himself. After his sister was placed into foster care, Macon would also become a ward of the state. His youth was marred with different group homes and juvenile facilities. When he was 14, he was arrested for sexually assaulting a girl with a stick. Full-fledged serial killer. Once he reached adulthood, things didn't change much. He was in and out of jail most of the time. In 2003, there was a series of sexual assaults in Lansing that were remained unsolved for years. Victims were all middle-aged and elderly women who lived alone. In February of 2005, the second semester of the school year at Lansing Community College, one-day students showed up for class and noticed an abundance of police occupying the campus. Students quickly found out that it was because 60-year-old Professor Carolyn Cronenberg was found raped and murdered in her classroom. She had been beaten, and an electric device had been inserted into a private area. Homeless student Claude McCallum was arrested for the murder of Cronenberg. McCallum had intellectual disabilities and reportedly confessed to the killing. A year later, he would be convicted and sentenced to life. When McCallum was put in prison for murdering Cronenberg, the city felt safer. Lansing, Michigan felt relief and hoped to put the gruesome killing behind them. But 2 years after Cronenberg's murder, it started happening again. Around the same time as McCallum's conviction, Macon, in and out of prison for years, was released on parole when he began a reign of terror that would leave 6 women dead by the end of the summer of 2007. On July 26, 2007, 76-year-old neighborhood activist Ruth Hallman was found in her home brutally beaten. Macon had knocked on Hallman's door asking if she needed any type of work done around her house for extra money. When she turned away for a moment, Macon entered her home and grabbed a small hammer from a drawer that he used to attack her. He hit her so hard in the side of the head that he knocked a hole in it. Initially, the people who discovered her thought she had cut herself on a lawnmower, then fell and injured her head. That was dismissed when paramedics examined her. They knew she had been the victim of a vicious assault so bad that one of her fingers was almost completely severed. According to City Pulse, on her way to the hospital, she told paramedics to call the police but couldn't elaborate. 2 days later, she succumbed to her injuries. Matthew Macon's murder spree didn't end there. On August 7, 2007, Macon ran into 36-year-old prostitute Deborah Cook at a gas station where he propositioned her. They walked to a nearby park where Macon sexually assaulted her and then beat her to death. She was found by police during a routine patrol, propped up against a tree while naked from the waist down with a stick inserted in her private areas. Just 2 days later, another victim would be discovered. It was 46-year-old Deborah Renfers, a longtime prostitute who was trying to positively change her life. She had been cleaning houses for work, doing her best to avoid the street life. Renfers had also been raped and beaten to death. The City Pulse reports that the police started to see similarities in these deaths and the string of sexual assaults that occurred in 2003. Different law enforcement agencies will become involved in the search for the serial killer stalking the city. Weeks later, on August 27, 2007, 64-year-old retired General Motors worker Sandra Eichhorn was found stabbed to death inside the home she rented. Macon knocked on her door while she was eating dinner and handed her a business card. When she reached for the card, he dragged her inside and grabbed a knife from her kitchen, in which he used to stab her 36 times. But Macon would leave a clue and produce a lead for investigators when he left the business card in Eichhorn's bowl of spaghetti. The manhunt. The business card Macon left at the scene was a local computer repair shop. When the police talked to the store's owners, he relayed a story about a suspicious man who had come into the shop looking to change the password on a laptop he said his friend had given him. The owner asked for the man's name and was refused. That sent red flags up in the owner's mind, thinking that the computer had possibly been stolen. Eventually, the man gave his name, phone number, and address. The name was Matthew Macon. Law enforcement was familiar with Macon and other members of his family who had their own legal troubles. Now they had a suspect, and the search was on. Macon's spree finally came to an end with the attempted murder of 56-year-old Linda Jackson. Jackson's dog defended her bravely, attacking Macon and chasing him out of the home. Jackson would survive her injuries, and the task force visited Jackson in the hospital, where she told them Macon had left his name. They spread out across the city in search of him. That night, officers located a man fitting the description of Macon. All the law enforcement agencies involved in the search descended upon the area of the sighting. When Macon was spotted, police officers jumped out of their car and apprehended the serial killer. They told Macon he was being arrested on parole violation warrant, but he knew something else was up. He asked the arresting officers, "All this for a warrant?" On August 29, 2007, a day after Macon's arrest, another victim would be found. A realtor was showing a vacant house to prospect buyers when they discovered 41-year-old Karen Delgado Yates. She had been sexually assaulted and severely beaten, but was still alive. Tragically, she would pass away while en route to the hospital. In interviews with detectives, Macon confessed to 7 killings dating back to 2004. He coldly counted them off, saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 people, that I murdered. I murdered them all. After his arrest, Macon's confession included the 2005 murder of 60-year-old Lansing Community College professor Carolyn Cronenberg. Claude McCallum, an LCC student at the time, had already been convicted of the murder and was later exonerated and released from prison. He was also given a $2 million settlement. The lead prosecutor in McCallum's case was fired after it was revealed that they did not disclose video evidence to his defense team that would have proven his innocence. Police also suspected Macon in the 2004 murder of Barbara Tuttle, who was discovered dead in the same home as Renfers. On June 18, 2008, Macon, for his crimes, was sentenced to 2 terms of life without the possibility of parole. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, and please feel free to leave comments in the comments section below. Also, make sure you're here for the next installment of the Michigan Murder Series, Larry and Danny, the murderous Kalamazoo brothers. Until then.